Welcome to this explainer from NFL Nexus. If you're looking for the absolute deepest dives into the gridiron, you're in the right place. Make sure to subscribe, like this explainer, comment your thoughts down below, and definitely consider supporting the channel by becoming a member. We've got a lot to unpack today. You know, the NFL offseason is almost always painted as this time of unbridled optimism. It's a period of endless potential, pristine practice fields, and glowing press conferences where every coach thinks they're winning the Super Bowl. But let's be totally honest here. Beneath that sunny veneer lies a brutal, unforgiving reality. Professional football is not just a game of X's and O's, it is a literal war of attrition. Everything you build from January to August, every brilliant scheme you draw up, every ounce of hope your fan base has, it can all change in a matter of seconds once the real games begin. Every single roster spot on a team becomes a matter of absolute survival. And looking closely at the Washington Commanders right now, it is very clear that they know exactly what's at stake.
Which brings us to what is arguably the single most defining question for any front office that has legitimate championship aspirations. How do you survive November? It's a question that just hangs heavy over the entire league. The physical toll of a grinding NFL season is absolutely terrifying when you really break it down. Think about November for a second. The turf is freezing. The weather is turning. Those lingering, nagging, soft tissue injuries from September? Yeah, those are compounding now. Opponents have had 8 weeks to sit in dark film rooms and study high-definition tape, dissecting your schemes, figuring out your tendencies, and hunting down your weakest links. Bodies just start to break down. The pristine depth chart you had in Week 1 shatters into a million pieces. The teams that crumble in the cold are always the ones that simply weren't ready for the inevitable, visceral impact of the midseason grind. So how do you prevent that collapse? Well, head coach Dan Quinn's answer to this looming threat is unapologetic. It's completely unconventional, and honestly, it borders on extreme. His philosophy is incredibly simple, but incredibly punishing. You prepare for November in June.
To really understand how you solve the attrition of the NFL season before it even starts, we have to look at what's actually happening on the practice field. For the Washington Commanders right now, mandatory minicamp is not a walkthrough. It is not a media showcase where guys are just tossing the ball around in shorts and t-shirts. It is the critical foundation for a grueling war. When you look at a standard NFL minicamp, the starting lineup gets like 90% of the focus. The cameras are trained on the established stars. The offensive flow, the timing routes, the red zone drills, they are entirely tailored to get the starting quarterback into a comfortable rhythm. But Dan Quinn is deliberately flipping that entire rep structure completely upside down. He is taking the bubble players, the guys fighting tooth and nail for their professional lives at the absolute bottom of the roster, and putting them front and center. We are literally talking about taking a guy who might be out of the league, maybe working a regular day job by September, and throwing him straight into the fire with the first-team defense. Quinn isn't looking at roster depth as some nice luxury to have. He is treating it as an absolute non-negotiable necessity to weather the coming storm.
He made this strategy perfectly clear to everyone in the building. He told the media that the guys who usually get the most reps are stepping back, and the guys who usually get the least are getting pushed to the front. He wants to see exactly what the bottom layer of his team looks like when the pressure is turned up to a suffocating level. What Quinn is demanding here is flawless alignment and assignment from the guys who usually just stand on the sidelines holding helmets during June practices. And why is he doing this? Because he intimately understands the psychological weight of this league. He knows that inducing mental exhaustion in June is literally the only way to prepare for the physical devastation of November. By Week 10, injuries aren't just a possibility. They are a mathematical inevitability. So that next man up, he cannot afford to be nervous. He has to be ready to perform flawlessly right now, having already been forged in the intense heat of these flipped practice reps.
And pushing this entire philosophy forward requires a very specific type of player under center to elevate the standard of the entire building. This entire system revolves around a massive catalyst on the offensive side of the ball. Dan Quinn specifically referred to this dynamic as a hidden advantage. Jayden Daniels isn't just an elite athlete who can throw a pretty deep ball. He is a highly demanding, unrelenting floor general. Let's look really closely at offensive coordinator David Blau's new system. It is incredibly dense. The sheer volume of playbook terminology these players are being forced to digest at the line of scrimmage is staggering. And Daniels is setting this relentless, unforgiving tone that leaves absolutely zero room for mental errors. His processing speed at the line of scrimmage is basically lethal. He walks up, reads the defense, identifies the Mike linebacker, and adjusts the entire offensive line's protection in fractions of a second. If you're a bubble player and you want to survive the final cut, you don't just have to be physically gifted, you have to be able to match that incredible, almost overwhelming processing speed play after play.
Daniels is completely dictating the pace of every single practice. He's working completely different cadences to catch the defense off guard, weaponizing his voice to draw guys off sides or force a coverage reveal. He's constantly shifting personnel groups in and out, forcing the defensive communication to be incredibly frantic and stressed. And above all else, he's demanding perfect spatial alignment. Let me give you a micro example of what that actually looks like. If a receiver is lined up just one single yard off their required spatial alignment, Daniels will literally stop the play. He demands they reset. He's intentionally turning a sunny, relaxed June practice field into a hostile, high-stakes puzzle. He's simulating a late-game environment where the crowd is screaming, the clock is ticking, and the game is on the line. He is making sure every single teammate has their spacing in perfect, meticulous order before the ball is even snapped. Because if they don't do it now, they definitely won't do it in the fourth quarter in November.
And that intense, daily pressure naturally brings us to the agonizing math problem that every NFL team faces, the roster bubble squeeze.
Evaluating a depth chart is a cold, calculated, and frankly, brutal reality. 53. That is the magic number. Just 53 men will survive this squeeze. Right now, during these camps, there are 90 men occupying that locker room. 90 guys eating together, lifting together, bleeding together. Doing the math out loud, that means 37 men are going to lose their livelihoods. 37 lifelong dreams are going to end in a quiet conversation in the general manager's office. When the dust finally settles, 53 is the absolute hard limit. The sheer scarcity of these final roster spots is what creates this unbelievable, almost suffocating tension we're seeing. Every minor decision, every single extra rep you get, every missed block on a Tuesday afternoon has a massive ripple effect across the entire squad.
You really see this brutal squeeze happening in the wide receiver room right now. Going from a projected 7 receivers kept on the active roster down to just 6 completely alters the team's dynamic. Let's dissect the profiles here. You have your projected locks and your rising talents. Terry McLaurin, obviously, is your elite, untouchable WR1. Luke McCaffrey has premium rookie draft capital and the NFL pedigree to match. Treylon Burks and De'Ami Brown bring this undeniable top-end vertical speed that you just can't teach. Then you have guys like Antonio Williams and Jaylen Lane making serious noise in camp. But this brutal math leaves an established, proven veteran like Van Jefferson on the outside looking in. Now you might be asking, why is Jefferson the odd man out? He's got veteran savvy, he has Super Bowl experience. But here is the harsh reality of the NFL bubble. If he doesn't offer elite special teams value, or if he doesn't have top-tier separation speed compared to the younger, cheaper guys, he becomes a casualty of the numbers game. Just one roster spot drops off the board, and an entire successful career suddenly hangs in the balance.
Meanwhile, if you look at the running back room, this might honestly be the absolute toughest, most agonizing cut-down call of them all. It's a true heavyweight battle for that 4th running back spot. Projected in right now, you've got Ja'Cory Bill-Crosky-Merritt, Rashad White, Katron Allen, and Jeremy McNichols. That leaves a fierce, intense battle where a very talented player like Jerome Ford sits directly on the bubble. Why is Ford struggling to break through? It comes down to trust. The coaching staff's past trust and history with Jeremy McNichols currently gives him a razor-thin edge. And this evaluation goes incredibly deep. We aren't just talking about who runs the ball better. We're talking about highly specific pass-blocking assignments on 3rd and long when a 250-pound linebacker is blitzing the A-gap. We're talking about unglamorous special team snaps on the kickoff coverage unit. In the film room, McNichols' deep understanding of blitz pickup nuances might be slightly ahead of Ford's raw playmaking ability. If you miss a block, Jayden Daniels gets crushed. It's that simple. So it's an agonizingly tight margin, debated late into the night by the coaching staff and fought over every single day on the practice field.
Let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball, because the chess match happening over there shows exactly how one tiny roster tweak completely changes everything else.
When roster spots are this incredibly limited, positional versatility isn't just a nice trait to have. It is literally sheer survival. Take a look at the math in the secondary. Modern NFL passing attacks are incredibly complex right now. They feature 4 wide receiver sets and elite slot guys that strictly require a defense to keep 5 capable cornerbacks active on game day. By keeping 5 corners, specifically by adding a veteran piece like Antonio Hamilton Sr., you quietly fortify the team's overall depth. Hamilton isn't just a depth corner sitting on the bench waiting for an injury. He plays crucial special teams phases. He is a highly effective gunner. He's a physical jammer on the punt return unit. But protecting that 5th corner spot and ensuring you have those special team snaps covered, it forces painful, difficult sacrifices elsewhere. It means you might have to cut a really promising developmental linebacker, or maybe a reliable backup tight end. Every single position group is connected by an invisible thread. Which is why finding players who can literally solve that roster math problem for you is the ultimate prize for a general manager. Enter Charles Omenihayo. He is the ultimate defensive chess piece. Let's look at Omenihayo like a scientific specimen for a second. His physical profile is exceedingly rare in this league.
He possesses incredible arm length, violent heavy hands, and the unique functional strength to play multiple specific gaps along the line. He can line up inside as a 3-technique defensive tackle, taking on double teams on early rundowns. And then, without substituting, he can seamlessly kick outside to the 5-technique edge spot to rush the passer on third down. That positional flexibility is massive. It allows a single player's traits to manipulate the entire 53-man roster calculus heavily in Washington's favor.
By categorizing and shifting Omenihu to the edge group, Washington's allocation beautifully balances out. They can keep exactly 5 edge rushers and 4 true defensive tackles. It means they don't lose an ounce of their interior power against the run. But crucially, let's examine the ripple effect of this flexibility. Because Omenihu can slide to the edge, it allows Washington to keep developmental upside talents on the roster, like Joshua Josephs. Now, who is Joshua Josephs? He's a very raw prospect, but he has elite bend, explosive first-step quickness, and a massive wingspan. He desperately needs a year or two in an NFL weight room to fill out his frame, but his ceiling as a pass rusher is sky-high. If Omenihu couldn't play both inside and outside spots, Josephs would likely be cut right now just to keep an extra pure defensive tackle. Think about that. One veteran player's extreme versatility effectively saves a rookie player's job and keeps a dream alive.
So we've talked about the how, but we really need to zoom out and look at the why. Why does all of this matter so deeply right now? Why the extreme, almost frantic urgency right now? Why is Dan Quinn so desperately testing this depth in the sweltering heat of June when the games don't even count yet? It all comes down to the climax of their entire offseason strategy, the absolute gauntlet of an opening schedule they are facing. Let's break down this 2026 opening gauntlet because it is terrifying. Game 1, the Eagles. Week 1, on the road, going into Lincoln Financial Field against a bitter division rival, dealing with the absolute hostility and deafening noise of the Philly crowd. It doesn't get harder than that. Game 2, the Cowboys. Staying on the road, traveling down to Dallas, facing the immense, suffocating pressure of one of the biggest rivalries in all of sports. Game 3, a neutral site international showcase over in Madrid. Just think about the logistical nightmare for a second. The transatlantic flight, the severe jet lag, the completely altered practice routines, trying to play American football on a slick soccer pitch in Europe. And then Game 4, the Seahawks. The sheer physical exhaustion of flying all the way back from Europe, trying to desperately reacclimate your body clock just to face a brutal, hard-hitting Seattle team at home. That is a truly terrifying, exhausting opening stretch. 3 grueling road environments, including an international trip, all crammed into the first 4 weeks of the season.
And a schedule like that brings the very real, very dangerous threat of a 1-3 start directly into focus. Let's look at the historical context of what that actually means. Statistically speaking, the probability of an NFL team making the playoffs after starting a season 1-3 is historically abysmal. It hovers right around 14%. A slow start of that magnitude in a rabid, hypercritical media market like Washington is often fatal to a coaching regime. The local media pressure reaches an absolute boiling point. The fans turn on you, and most dangerously, the locker room risks completely fracturing under the immense weight of those early losses. Guys start pointing fingers. The margin for error is essentially zero. This right here is exactly why Jayden Daniels is out there in June, pushing the offensive tempo to a suffocating level. It's why Dan Quinn is running obsessive, intense depth checks on the absolute bottom of the roster. These are not just clever coaching tactics or motivational ploys. They are the only viable vaccine against an October collapse. They are matters of absolute survival for the entire 2026 campaign.
So after breaking all of this down, we are left with one hanging, tension-filled question that will define this team's entire year. Will this intense June crucible actually forge a team strong enough to survive the brutal reality of November? The stakes are completely set. The blueprint has been drawn. Now they just have to execute. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive explainer. If you want to survive the offseason with us and stay ahead of the curve, make sure to subscribe to NFL Nexus, hit the like button on this explainer, and definitely drop your thoughts in the comments down below. Who do you think actually survives the bubble in Washington? Let me know. And to support the most detailed cinematic football analysis on the platform, consider becoming a channel member today. Until next time, keep grinding and we'll see you on the gridiron.